the U.S. currency collapses. How do you see possibly a step-by-step the collapse occurring?
I see it very similar, starting very similar to what happened in 2008. The kind of freezing of credit between banks. Every bank is levered. They say 20 to 1, but it's more like 100 to 1 if you throw in all the derivatives. And as the banks freeze up and the credit markets freeze up, the entire system freezes up, and people start, basically there's runs on banks between banks. Kind of the same thing going on that was going on in 2008. Now back then they were able to stop it with a lot of fraud and a lot of holding up Congress, and the Federal Reserve paid European banks billions and billions of dollars to get them straight. So there was a lot of fraud going on and a lot of behind the scenes stuff going on. This time I think it'll start the same way, but the full force of the good guys is going to come behind it. I do think the CFTC is going to, when the crash starts, is going to implement a lot of these rules and regulations to make sure the banks can't survive it.
Okay. Right. So, on another angle, do you think the bad guys are being removed from power? And if so, why?
Yes. And, the why is because it gets back to the road to Ruta theory. At least in the United States, these guys took over pretty much the United States with probably, 1913. They were given a lot of reign when they took over the monetary system, and it's gone on from there, and presidents have talked about it, the military industrial complex, the banking cabal, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati, you name it. They have taken over, and it was the plan of Greenspan and those guys back in the 60s to take the country back, but they had to do it through the monetary system. If you look at, are they being taken down? You look at, Bernie Madoff was a great example. There's so much more behind the Madoff situation than they're telling people. And Bernie Madoff was taken down by, Michael Mukasey and his son, who was I think he worked in one of the Justice Department offices. But Michael Mukasey was the Attorney General of the U.S., and he's one of the original good guys. And the Madoff thing was, a lot of people don't know how much it involved and how many of the bad guys were involved in that. It was a huge network, a lot having to do with Israel. And, that was one of the big takedowns. There's smaller ones going on. The head of the IMF, he's being taken out, and there's all kinds of little guys dropping left and right now. And more will come. And because there was more fraud, and there are task forces, the FBI, a good part of the FBI, that are going after these guys. And when the crash happens, then they're going to start with the perp walks and try to flush the system out. I believe. But you can see it happening already.
Okay. So do you think that Bernanke is still one of the good guys in light of some of the machinations of the Fed as of late?
Yes, I do. If you look at what Bernanke's doing and you look at what Greenspan's doing, and they're pumping as much money into the system as possible. I would be concerned if they started pulling back the reins and were trying to balance budgets and things like that. But they're not. They're trying to pump as much money into this system to destroy it. And they are doing it. They're doing a great job of it. They're printing money out all orifices at the moment, and it will destroy the U.S. dollar. It is quickly doing it already. And if you look at the plan all along was to print as much as you can, suck out as much benefit as you can until the U.S. dollar is not accepted anymore.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, next question is from Perseus.
Hi, Bix. Just want to quickly just go back to the counterfeit gold and silver issue. Something I've not really seen covered anywhere is that material properties of the metals that you can use to counterfeit it with. There's molybdenum, which shares the same density as silver, and tungsten, which shares and tungsten that shares the same density as gold. The one property that I've never seen mentioned anywhere is the stiffness. It's what's called flexural rigidity. If you bend molybdenum coin or bar, it's much stiffer, and you won't get the same. You'll get very little deflection. And the same with tungsten. So it's a non-destructive test that you can use for. You don't have to drill your bars and remelt them. And
there's I also saw was it like a buoyancy test? And I mean, there are a lot of tests, and you know, I tend to stick to just the coins because I'm not an expert tester, and I know most of my subscribers are, you know, just mom and pops who are trying to save what little they have of savings now. And my advice is always just stick with what you know and what, you know, you can always weigh them. If they look right and feel right, you get a good feel for it.
I use a Fitch coin detector.
Oh yeah, they're expensive, but they're good.
Yeah. I mean, I weighed it up that it cost about $130 or something, but I thought, you know, the price of losing one coin to be fake, it's you know, economically it's good to spend the money on that detector. So I did
the same thing, and you know, I got it, and I'm like, I just spent $130 on a little tiny piece of plastic, but it was worth it.
Yeah. I know. When it turns up, you think, God, you spent that kind of money on there. Plastic, but it is, yes, it's definitely worth it. Just, can we go back to Kitco? We're getting reports at the moment that Kitco has been raided again today, and this is 10 days after the initial reports come out that they've been raided, but we haven't got confirmation of that yet. But what's your hypothesis on what the motivation behind the Canadian government raiding them for the tax fraud? Is it? You know,
I think it's part of the whole thing. I think they're starting to go after the banking cabal. I do think Kitco was involved. I know John Nadler, who you know, everybody laughs. Oh, he's such a, you know, an anti-gold guy, anti-silver guy. The reality is, John, you look at his resume. He worked for HSBC, and then he worked for B of A, instituting their pooled programs, their pooled metal lending programs. He was kind of the inventor of this, you know, silver and gold pooled accounts concept that, and he brought it to the Perth Bank, the Perth Bank down in Australia, and he brought it to Canada, and he's just, you know, I'm not a big fan of John Nadler's.
No. I read Le Metropole Cafe every night, and, you know, Bill Murphy's always, mentions John Nadler. It's quite funny. But just going, with regards to the CFTC then, do you think, obviously we don't want to get into libelous conversation, but what do you think of Bart Chilton? Is he acting in the interest of the free market, or is he a cleverly disguised agent of the banking community?
No, Bart is extremely smart. He knows what's going on. He can't tell us everything he knows. When he got confirmed because Dianne Feinstein made it happen. And Feinstein's in with the good guys. She's the one who hid all the gold in Chocolate Mountain in California. Right after he got confirmed, he spent 3 hours with Dianne Feinstein, and she basically clued him in on the manipulation of gold and silver and what his job was to clean up the CFTC and the banksters. He plays his role very well. He's very smart. Gensler is very smart. Gensler used to run the official rigging of the U.S. dollar for the U.S. through Goldman Sachs. So it's kind of, Goldman Sachs has kind of a dark side and a good side, believe it or not. But Gensler is now heading it, and all the commissioners know what was going on. They're very smart now. They got rid of, who was that last guy that just recently left?
Oh, yeah. What's his name?
Yeah, he wasn't as bright as the rest, but, they're gonna get a new guy now, supposedly, who's gonna be on the side of the, investors instead of JP Morgan. So I still, people make fun of me for still, I fight them and I support them at the same time, because I know that the fight motivates people around to see what's going on. But I also know that when it comes time for them to stand up and do their job, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Bix.
Sure.
Thanks, Perseus. Just another question, Bix. From your interviews and articles, it seems you are very much in the inflationary, even hyperinflationary camp with a forecast of $1,000 silver. What signs would change your mind and lean you towards a more deflationary debt bust? Views similar to Carl Denninger and others.
I think if the system stays intact, if the unbacked fiat money system stays intact, there is no other way to go but hyperinflation or super hyperinflation. There is no other choice. If it doesn't stay intact, if there is a global crash that, kind of like 2008, except without the saving grace of Hank Paulson, if there is a global crash, you can call it deflationary, but all money will go away, so no one will have any type of thing. So, with the crash of the banks, pretty much every company and every individual will lose everything they have in the banks, in their 401ks and their IRAs and in all their savings accounts, checking accounts, you name it. So if you call that deflationary, that's a possibility as well. If the system stays intact, no, they're going to print and print and print to continue to support the system.
And with the stopping of QE2, I guess it's leading more towards a crash because that's what's held the system up, the additional printing of money, I guess.
Well, it depends if they might continue to print money and call it or not tell anybody. A lot of what people don't quite get their hands around is this thing called money these days are electronic blips and pieces of paper. There is factories around the world kicking out $100 bills by the billions. They're just pieces of paper with ink. And, to say it's illegal to print $100 bills in North Korea is laughable. Is the Treasury going to go over to North Korea, invade them and steal their printing presses? There's $100 bills all over the place. There's a secret monetary system behind the one we see. So to talk about QE2, QE3, those are the official types of monetary instruments. And there's so much more that goes on in the dark rooms behind, the Federal Reserve and the banks and into the quintillions in the derivative market that, these QE2 and QE3 is just kind of, it's kind of a dog and pony show that they're showing the public, but there's so much more going on in the background.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at the drug cartels and even the counterfeit organizations, I'm pretty sure they have a hand in that as well. The next question is from Odinson.
Hi. Sorry. I came in the middle. We had some interesting weather in New York.
I bet.
Which, it was kind of eerie because I read the Kitco thing right at the same time as the weather went wonky. So I was wondering if there's some symbolism in it. And then I saw a giant rainbow. I wonder if there's a pot of gold at the end of it.
You can read anything you want into all that.
So, alright. Enough fooling around. Greenspan is quoted as saying the following in the 1960s. I would love to be the Federal Reserve Chairman when the Kondratev winter comes because I think I could override it by dropping the interest rates and printing enough money that it would overcome the deflationary aspects of this economy.